The first thing they noticed wasn't the blood. It was the way she stood. A lone figure in faded green scrubs, unmoving, unshaken, as three armed men closed in around her. The broken broom handle in her hand was splintered, jagged, more weapon than tool now. Her knuckles had gone pale from the pressure, her grip so tight it looked fused to the wood. A thin line of crimson slid slowly down her forearm, dripping onto the pavement beneath her feet. Behind her, an elderly woman trembled, clutching the back of her shirt, whispering desperate prayers. The men hesitated. Just for a second. Because something about this nurse wasn't normal. They saw a civilian. An easy target. They didn't see the moment that broke her years ago. They didn't see the reason she would never run again. And they had no idea. This was the worst mistake of their lives. If you're ready for a story about power, dignity, forbidden love, and the sweetest revenge you've ever witnessed, then you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this channel brings you the most addictive romance stories you won't find anywhere else. Drop a fire in the comments if you're team revenge. And let's get into this story. 12 hours earlier, the world had been quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of silence that settles over a life stripped down to its bare essentials. Zara's apartment sat on the third floor of a crumbling building that smelled faintly of bleach and damp concrete. Inside, it was even more sterile. 4 walls. A narrow bed. A metal chair. A small table pushed against the window where the city's noise filtered in like a distant memory she no longer belonged to. She sat there now, shoulders slightly hunched, eating slowly from a chipped bowl of oatmeal. No music.no, television.no distractions. Just the soft scrape of metal against ceramic. Her movements were precise. Measured. Every action carried out with the efficiency of someone who had learned, over time, not to waste energy on anything unnecessary. Even breathing seemed controlled, as if too much of it might cost her something she couldn't afford. On the chair beside her lay her uniform. Dark green scrubs. Clean. Folded. Faded from too many washes. A second skin. She finished eating, set the spoon down, and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. When she looked up, her reflection stared back at her from the dark window. For a moment, she didn't recognize herself. The face was young, mid-20s, but the eyes didn't match. They were older. Tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. A faint network of scars traced along her temple, disappearing into her hairline, subtle enough to miss unless you were looking for them. But they were there. Proof that this life hadn't always been quiet. Zara looked away first. She always did. At the care facility, she moved like a ghost. Efficient. Silent. Reliable. Patients trusted her. Not because she smiled, she rarely did, but because of the way she touched them. Careful. Steady. Like she understood exactly how much pain a body could hold before it broke. Because she did. She changed dressings. Administered medication. Sat beside beds in the early hours of the morning when breathing became shallow and time felt fragile. Her coworkers called her focused. Some said cold. None of them knew the truth. They didn't see the way her hands lingered just a second longer when a patient winced. They didn't hear the conversation she never spoke out loud. They didn't feel the weight she carried into every room. Zara didn't correct them. It was easier this way. No questions. No connections. No one close enough to see what was underneath. Her shift ended early that day. An unusual break in routine. Most people would have welcomed it. Zara didn't. She stood outside the building for a moment longer than necessary, adjusting the strap of her worn bag across her shoulder. The afternoon sun hung high above the city, warm and bright, almost intrusive. She wasn't used to having time. Time meant thinking. And thinking led places she had spent years trying to avoid. So she walked. No destination. No urgency. Just movement. The streets were alive in a way her apartment never was. Vendors called out from roadside stalls. Laughter drifted through the air. The scent of grilled meat mixed with flowers and dust, wrapping around her senses in something almost overwhelming. She passed through it all like she didn't belong there. Like she was watching someone else's life unfold from a distance. A stranger in a world that felt too full. Her fingers tightened slightly around her bag strap. There had been a time, long ago, when she understood this kind of noise. When she had been part of something louder. Messier. Dangerous. Her jaw clenched. She pushed the thought down before it could fully surface. That life was gone. Buried. Left behind for a reason. Now she worked. She survived. That was enough. It had to be. Across the city, far removed from cracked pavement and crowded streets, the world operated differently. Higher. Colder. Sharper. Jin-woo Park stood before a wall of glass that stretched from floor to ceiling, the skyline laid out beneath him like something he owned. The city pulsed with life below, unaware that so much of its rhythm bent quietly to his will. His hands were clasped behind his back. Still. Composed. Every detail about him was deliberate, from the precision of his tailored suit to the controlled stillness of his posture. He didn't fidget. Didn't shift. Predators didn't need to. They waited. Behind him, the office was almost empty. A black desk. A series of screens flickering with numbers, routes, transactions, an empire moving in silence. On one corner sat a single vase, delicate and pale, holding a white orchid that seemed impossibly perfect. Nothing here was accidental. Nothing was unnecessary. A soft knock broke the silence. Enter. The door opened slowly, and warmth stepped into the room. Sunhai Park moved with quiet grace, her presence softening the sterile edges of everything around her. She carried a small tray, steam rising gently from a porcelain cup. "You've been standing there too long," she said, her voice calm but firm. Jin-woo turned. And just for a fraction of a second, the mask shifted. Not gone. But lighter. "Mother!" He stepped forward, accepting the cup from her hands. The warmth seeped into his fingers, grounding him in something real, something untouched by the world he controlled. She studied him for a moment. Not the empire. Not the power. Just her son. "You work too much," she said quietly. "There is always work to do." Her gaze drifted briefly to the screens behind him, numbers she didn't understand, and never wanted to. That world wasn't hers. She had chosen something softer. Gardens. Poetry. Silence. He had chosen everything else. And yet, he protected her from it all. Or at least, he believed he did. A soft chime cut through the moment. One of the screens flickered. Jin-woo's eyes shifted instantly, the warmth disappearing as quickly as it had come. "Excuse me." He set the cup down untouched and moved toward the console, tapping a control. A face appeared. Tense. Focused. "Sir," the man said. "We have a situation." Jin-woo didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence was permission. "There's movement," the voice continued. "A new player. Russian. Name's Viktor Orlov. He's been asking questions. About your operations, your routes." A pause. Then, "Your personal life." The room felt colder. Jin-woo's expression didn't change. But something behind his eyes did. "A mistake," he said calmly. "That's what I thought," the man replied. "But he's not acting like someone who understands that yet." Jin-woo's gaze hardened, turning back toward the glass. Below him, the city carried on. Unaware. Unprepared. "Then he will learn." He ended the call without another word. Behind him, his mother watched quietly. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need answers. But somewhere, deep beneath the calm surface of the moment, something had already begun to shift. And far across the city. Without knowing it, Zara was already walking straight toward it. Across the industrial edge of the city, where the streets thinned out and the buildings grew hollow, the air carried a different weight. Heavier. Colder. Like something was waiting. Inside a rust-stained warehouse, laughter shattered the silence. Not joy. Not humor. Something rougher. Sharper. Dangerous. Victor Orloff leaned back into a worn leather chair that creaked under his weight, a bottle of vodka hanging loosely from his hand. His presence filled the room, not with authority, but with force. Loud. Unrefined. The kind of man who believed power was measured by how much fear he could create. Around him stood his men. Restless. Watchful. Not loyal, just useful. So this is the great Jean Wu, Victor muttered, swirling the liquid in his bottle before taking a long, careless drink. The ghost king of this city. He smirked. I don't believe in ghosts. One of his lieutenants shifted uneasily, glancing at the others before speaking. We've confirmed his operations, he said carefully. Ports, shipments, front businesses. Tight security. No obvious weaknesses. Victor didn't look impressed. Of course not, he replied, waving a dismissive hand. Men like him build walls. Tall ones. Thick ones. He leaned forward slightly, his grin widening. But they all forget the same thing. Silence settled over the group. A tension that didn't belong to fear, but anticipation. The heart, Victor said softly, tapping his chest. That's where you break them. The room shifted. Even the air seemed to tighten. The lieutenant hesitated. Boss, what exactly are you suggesting? Victor's eyes gleamed. He protects something, he said. Someone. That's the only reason a man like that doesn't burn the whole city to the ground. A beat. Then, we take her. The words landed heavy. No one moved. For a moment, even these men, accustomed to violence, felt it. The line. The one you don't cross. You're talking about his mother, another man said quietly. Victor laughed. Loud. Unbothered. Exactly, he said. An old woman. Fragile. Predictable. She walks the same streets every day. Same time. Same pattern. He took another drink. He hides her behind guards, but not all the time. The lieutenant frowned. That's not a negotiation play, he said. That's suicide. Victor's smile faded, just enough to show the edge beneath it. You're thinking small, he replied. Everyone thinks he's untouchable because of his business. Because of his money. He leaned forward, voice lowering. But men like him aren't built on money. A pause. They're built on emotion. The room fell silent again. Victor's grin returned. We don't ask for ransom, he continued. We don't bargain. We make him watch everything crumble while he chases something he can't protect. A flicker of unease moved through the group. He'll come for us, someone muttered. Victor shrugged. Let him. Then, almost casually. By the time he does, we'll already have everything. He stood up slowly, rolling his shoulders as if the plan had already succeeded. It's simple, he said. Quick. Clean. 30 seconds. He raised 3 fingers. In, grab, out. He dropped his hand. No one interferes. And that was the moment everything tilted. Because in Victor's world, that assumption felt safe. Certain. Absolute. Across the city, Zara had no idea any of this existed. She was still walking. Still drifting through streets that felt too alive for someone like her. Her pace was steady, almost mechanical, sneakers brushing softly against the pavement in a rhythm she didn't consciously track. The weight of her bag rested against her side, familiar. Grounding. She kept her head slightly lowered, not in fear, but in habit. Less eye contact. Less interaction. Less chance of being pulled into something she didn't want. Or worse. Something she did. A vendor called out nearby, offering food she didn't turn to look at. Laughter erupted from a group across the street. Music drifted faintly from somewhere out of sight. It all blurred together. Noise without meaning. Life without connection. She passed it like a shadow. Unnoticed. Uninvolved. Safe. At least, that's what she told herself. A few blocks ahead, the world softened. Quieter street. Fewer people. And at the corner, Sunhigh Park paused. Her fingers brushed lightly against a display of flowers, her expression gentle, almost nostalgic. The colors caught the sunlight in soft bursts, pink, white, yellow, vivid against the muted tones of the street. Behind her, two men stood at a distance. Sharp suits. Watchful eyes. Protective, but restrained. They didn't crowd her. Didn't hover. They understood the balance. Just a moment, she said softly in Korean, glancing back at them. I'll walk to the end of the street. The lead guard stepped forward slightly. Ma'am, we should stay close. She smiled. Not dismissive. Just certain. I've walked this street longer than you've been alive, she replied gently. 2 minutes. He hesitated. Just for a second. Then nodded. Reluctantly. 2 minutes. She turned the corner alone. And for that brief moment, she wasn't a target. She wasn't a weakness. She was just a woman enjoying the afternoon. Back on the main road, a black van idled quietly. Engine low. Unassuming. Invisible. Inside, 3 men waited. Watching. Timing. Now? One of them asked. The driver checked his watch. Eyes narrowing. Now. The engine roared to life. Zara stepped onto the same street seconds later. She didn't notice the van at first. Didn't notice the shift. The subtle way the air changed. The silence creeping in. But something deep in her instincts, flickered. A warning. A feeling she hadn't felt in years. Her pace slowed. Just slightly. Her eyes lifted. Scanning. At the far end of the street, the van jerked forward. Too fast. Too sudden. Too deliberate. Its tires screamed against the pavement as it cut across the narrow road, blocking everything. The side door slid open with a violent metallic snap, and 3 masked men stepped out. Fast. Focused. Predatory. Their target already in sight. Zara stopped. Not because she understood what was happening, but because something inside her did. And in the distance, an elderly woman turned. Just as one of the men reached for her. The world didn't stop. It held its breath. And then, everything broke. The first sound wasn't the scream. It was the impact. A hand grabbing fabric. Shoes scraping against pavement. The dull, violent shuffle of a body being pulled where it didn't want to go. Then, the scream came. Sharp. Fragile. Wrong. It cut through the street like glass. Zara felt it before she fully processed it. Her body reacted first, shoulders tightening, breath catching mid-inhale, pulse spiking in a way that didn't belong to the present. Because this wasn't new. At the far end of the street, the masked men moved fast. One clamped a hand over the elderly woman's arm, yanking her toward the van. Another scanned the area, eyes flicking over frozen bystanders who had already made their decision. Don't get involved. Don't look. Don't be next. A crate of fruit tipped over somewhere to Zara's left. Oranges rolled across the pavement, bouncing, scattering, bright and chaotic against the gray. No one stepped forward. No one spoke. The world didn't stop. It stepped back. And suddenly, Zara wasn't there anymore. She was 15. The air smelled different. Stale. Heavy. Thick with something sour that clung to the back of her throat. The walls were closer. The light dimmer. Voices echoed. Shouting. Something breaking. Her brother's voice, smaller, younger, pleading. And him. The man who filled the doorway like a storm that never passed. Rage without warning. Violence without hesitation. Her brother backed into the corner, nowhere left to go. Zara stood frozen. Right there. Watching. Her hands were shaking, but they didn't move. Her feet were rooted to the floor. Her mind screamed at her to do something. Anything. But her body refused. Fear had weight. And it pinned her in place. Then, the grab. The same grab. Rough. Sudden. Her brother cried out, eyes wide, searching for her. Not for help. For something worse. For confirmation. That she would do something. That she wouldn't just stand there. And she didn't. She didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't fight. The sound that came next, of impact, of pain, of something breaking. It never left her. It followed her. For years. Into every quiet room. Into every sleepless night. Into every version of herself she tried to rebuild. She had run after that. Run from the apartment. Run from the memory. Run from the guilt that wrapped around her ribs and never let go. Her brother survived. But something between them didn't. Something inside her didn't. And no matter how far she ran, she never outran that moment. No! The words slipped from her lips in the present, barely audible. A breath. A refusal. The street snapped back into focus. The van. The men. The woman. The same look in her eyes. Fear. Helplessness. A silent plea. And just like that, the past and present collided. Hard. Violent. Unavoidable. The man dragging the woman adjusted his grip, pulling her closer to the van. She stumbled, her balance failing, her voice trembling into broken cries that no one answered. No one. Except Zara. Her chest rose sharply, breath dragging in like it hurt. Her vision tunneled. Not from fear, but from clarity. This was it. The moment. The one she had replayed 1,000 times in her head, rewriting it, reshaping it, imagining what she should have done. What she could have done. What she didn't do. Her fingers twitched at her sides. For a split second, the weight returned. That same paralysis. That same invisible force trying to hold her in place. Telling her, don't move. Stay safe. Stay out of it. Survive. Her jaw clenched. Hard. No. This time, louder. Stronger. Final. Something inside her snapped. Not control. Not sanity. Something else. Something buried. Something she had kept locked down for years because she was afraid of what would happen if she let it out. The fear didn't disappear. It burned. And then it changed. Her body moved. Before doubt could catch up. Before logic could interfere. Instinct took over. Raw. Unfiltered. Absolute. Her eyes scanned the street in a single sweeping motion, fast, precise, searching. And then, she saw it. Leaning against the wall of a closed storefront. A broom. Old. Worn. Forgettable. Until now. Zara moved. Fast. Her sneakers hit the pavement with sudden force as she closed the distance, fingers wrapping around the wooden handle in one clean motion. The texture was rough beneath her skin, solid, grounded, real. She didn't hesitate. Didn't think. She slammed the brush end against the brick wall beside her. Once. Twice. Plastic cracked. Shattered. She twisted hard. A sharp snap echoed as the head broke clean off, leaving a long, heavy shaft in her hands. One end jagged. Splintered. Dangerous. Her grip tightened. This wasn't a tool anymore. It was a weapon. Behind her, someone shouted. Hey! Stop! But it wasn't directed at her. It was directed at the men. Too late. Zara turned. And ran straight toward them. Leave her alone! Her voice tore through the air. Not soft. Not hesitant. Something deeper. Something older. The men paused. Just for a second. Heads turning toward her. Assessing. Calculating. And then, they laughed. A short, dismissive sound muffled behind their masks. One of them shifted his stance, adjusting his grip on the woman. Walk away, he said flatly. This isn't your problem. Zara didn't slow down. Didn't answer. Her steps were steady. Direct. Every inch of her body locked onto a single point. The space between them and the van. The space she intended to take. They saw a nurse. A woman in scrubs. A civilian holding a broken stick. They didn't see what was coming. Zara's pace didn't falter. Her grip didn't loosen. Her eyes didn't waver. And then, she crossed the line. There was no going back. The first strike came without warning. No hesitation. No build-up. Just movement. Zara closed the final distance in a blur, the broken staff cutting through the air with a sharp, violent whistle as she swung low, fast, deliberate, straight for the nearest man's hands. Crack. The sound was sickening. Bone meeting wood. The man screamed, his grip snapping open as his weapon clattered to the ground. He staggered backward, clutching his wrist, eyes wide with shock. Not pain. Shock. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. The second man reacted too late. He lunged forward, trying to overpower her with size, with force, but Zara didn't meet him head-on. She shifted. Quick. Precise. Her body moved on instinct, stepping just outside his reach as she drove the jagged end of the staff forward. Hard. The splintered tip punched into his thigh. He howled, collapsing instantly, hands scrambling to clutch the wound as blood seeped through his fingers. 2 down. In seconds. Silence didn't follow. Chaos did. The leader's grip tightened on the elderly woman, pulling her back violently as his posture changed, no longer dismissive, no longer amused. Now. Focused. Dangerous. You. He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. His arm snapped upward, pistol already in hand, aimed directly at Zara's chest. The shift was immediate. Total. This wasn't control anymore. This was survival. Zara stopped. Not out of fear. But calculation. Her chest rose and fell in sharp, controlled breaths, her grip tightening around the staff as her eyes locked onto the weapon pointed at her. Time slowed. Not completely. But enough. Enough for her to see it. The distance. The angle. The way his finger tightened just slightly against the trigger. Behind her, the world had disappeared. No voices. No movement. Just the three of them. And the space between life and death. Drop it, the man snapped. Zara didn't move. Didn't blink. Her stance adjusted subtly, weight shifting onto the balls of her feet, shoulders squared, not aggressive, not defensive. Ready. Let her go, she said. Her voice wasn't loud. But it carried. Clear. Steady. Certain. For a moment. Nothing happened. Then. The gun fired. The sound cracked through the air like lightning. Zara felt it before she saw it. A searing heat tearing across her left arm, sharp and electric, forcing a sharp breath from her lungs as her body jerked slightly with the impact. She staggered half a step. Then stopped. Blood spread quickly through the fabric of her sleeve, dark and blooming, dripping steadily onto the pavement. Pain followed. Hot. Immediate. Demanding. She ignored it. Her eyes lifted. Locked back onto his. And what he saw there wasn't fear. It was certainty. Something in his expression flickered. Just for a second. Because he had expected screaming. Collapse. Retreat. Not this. Zara stepped forward. Slow. Deliberate. The staff lifted again, the splintered edge now angled upward, aligned not with his body, but his throat. Let her go, she repeated. The elderly woman behind him trembled, her breath shallow, uneven, her fingers clutching desperately at his arm, but Zara never looked away from him. Never broke focus. The street held its breath. The leader recalculated. Fast. His eyes flicked briefly to his injured men, both down, both incapacitated, then back to Zara. To the blood. To the weapon. To the distance between them. This was wrong. All of it. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He tightened his grip on the woman, pulling her slightly forward, positioning her between himself and Zara. A shield. Zara adjusted instantly. One step to the side. Matching. Maintaining the line. No escape. His jaw clenched. Decision forming. Finger tightening again on the trigger. And then, something changed. At first, it was subtle. A low vibration. Faint. Distant. Then louder. Engines. Not one. Several. The sound rolled down the street like thunder, deep and controlled, growing rapidly until it swallowed everything else. Zara didn't turn. Didn't need to. But the man did. His eyes flicked past her. And in that instant, everything drained from his face. Fear. Real fear. At the far end of the street, 3 black SUVs tore into view, moving fast, too fast, before slamming to a synchronized stop, cutting off the exit in a perfect blockade. Doors opened in unison. 6 men stepped out. Dark suits. Controlled movements. Weapons already drawn. Not raised. Not waving. Just, ready. The air changed. Instantly. This wasn't chaos. This was order. Cold. Precise. Absolute. Zara felt it. Even without turning. The shift in power. The sudden, crushing weight of something far bigger than the moment she had stepped into. The man holding the gun felt it too. His bravado, gone. His control, gone. Because he recognized them. And that meant he knew exactly who was coming next. The rear door of the lead SUV opened slowly. And the street fell completely silent. The door didn't slam. It opened. Slowly. Deliberately. And somehow, that was worse. Every eye on the street shifted toward it. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, as if the world itself understood that something had just changed. A polished black shoe touched the pavement. Then another. Jin-woo Park stepped out. He didn't rush. Didn't react to the chaos, the blood, the bodies on the ground. He simply walked forward. Measured. Controlled. Inevitable. The man holding the gun froze. Not because he was thinking. Because he wasn't. Instinct had taken over, and it was telling him something very simple. Run. But his body didn't move. Because there was nowhere to run to. The suited men fanned out with silent precision, their movements clean and practiced, weapons steady, eyes locked. No shouting. No wasted motion. Just containment. Just control. Jin-woo's gaze swept the scene once. That was all it took. The injured men. The dropped weapon. The trembling figure of his mother. And then, Zara. His eyes stopped on her. Not the blood first. Not the weapon. Her. The way she stood. The way she didn't move. The way she didn't break. Something in his expression shifted. Not warmth. Never that. But recognition. Behind him, one of his men moved. Fast. Efficient. The thug with the broken wrist was disarmed and dragged back before he could react. The second followed, no resistance left to give. The leader was the only one still standing. Still holding the gun. Still holding her. Drop it. The voice came from one of the suited men. Calm. Flat. Final. The thug didn't respond. Couldn't. His eyes were locked on Jin-woo now, panic rising fast, breathing uneven beneath the mask. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't supposed to happen. For a split second. Desperation won. He shoved the elderly woman forward, trying to create space, trying to raise his weapon. Trying to take something back. He never finished the motion. A soft, suppressed crack echoed. Quick. Clean. Precise. The man dropped instantly. Like something had simply been switched off. Silence followed. Not shock. Not confusion. Just silence. Zara didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Her grip on the staff loosened only slightly as the tension in her body began, slowly, to unwind. Not relief. Something heavier. Deeper. Behind her, the elderly woman stumbled forward, breath shaking, hands reaching, grasping for something real. For safety. For her. Zara turned then. Just enough. Just in time to catch her. "It's okay," she said quietly. The words came out softer than anything she had said all day. Different. Not the voice that had fought. Not the voice that had roared. Something else. The woman clung to her, trembling. Alive. Because of her. Footsteps approached. Slow. Unhurried. Zara felt it before she saw him. That presence. Heavy. Controlled. Watching. She turned. Jinwoo stopped a few feet away. Close enough to see everything. The blood on her arm. The way she held herself. The weapon still in her hand. His eyes moved over her once. Carefully. Not as a man looking at a stranger. As a man assessing something rare. Something unexpected. "They told me what you did." His voice was low. Even. Carrying weight without force. Not gratitude. Not praise. Just truth. Zara swallowed, her throat dry, but she didn't look away. Didn't shrink. Didn't lower her gaze. "I couldn't just stand there," she said. Simple. Honest. His head tilted slightly. Studying her. Not the words. The meaning behind them. "No," he said after a moment. "You couldn't." A pause. Then he stepped closer. "My mother's life," he continued, voice dropping just enough to shift the air between them, "is not something that can be repaid." Zara said nothing. Didn't expect anything. But he wasn't finished. "This creates a debt." Another pause. Longer this time. Intentional. "And I don't repay debts with money." Something flickered behind her eyes. Confusion. Guarded curiosity. He saw it. "You have nothing," he said. Not cruel. Not harsh. Just accurate. Her jaw tightened slightly. But she didn't deny it. "You live alone. You avoid people. You carry something you haven't put down." His gaze sharpened. "You fight like someone who has already lost everything." Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Exposing. For the first time, Zara felt seen. Not as a nurse. Not as a stranger. But as something deeper. Something she had spent years hiding. "You're wrong about one thing," he said. A beat. "You're not empty." He extended his hand slightly, not to her, but outward. As if offering something larger than himself. "You're unfinished." Her breath caught. Just for a second. "I can give you something your life does not have," he continued. "Direction. Purpose. A place where what you are is not a burden." The words settled slowly. Carefully. Like something dangerous. "My mother needs someone who doesn't hesitate," he said. "Someone who stands beside her. Not behind." His gaze locked fully onto hers now. Unyielding. "I'm offering you a place." A pause. A reason. And then. The final shift. A war. The street was silent again. But this time. It wasn't holding its breath. It was waiting for her answer. Weeks later, the city felt different. Not quieter. Not safer. Just clearer. Zara stood on a wide stone balcony overlooking a stretch of manicured gardens that seemed untouched by the chaos beyond the estate walls. The air carried the faint scent of sandalwood and trimmed grass, a sharp contrast to the sterile emptiness she once called home. She no longer wore scrubs. No faded green. No loose fabric hiding exhaustion. Now, everything about her was deliberate. Dark training clothes. Clean lines. Controlled movement. In her hands she held a staff. Not broken. Not improvised. Perfectly balanced. Solid. Real. Her grip adjusted slightly as she moved through a sequence, slow at first, then faster. Each strike precise. Each turn intentional. The wild, desperate energy that once drove her had been reshaped into something sharper. Disciplined. Focused. Dangerous. Footsteps approached behind her. Light. Familiar. "You're improving," Sunhai said gently. Zara stopped, lowering the staff, her breathing steady now. She turned, offering a small nod, subtle, but real. "Still learning." Sunhai smiled, the warmth in her expression unchanged from that day on the street. But now, there was something deeper there. Pride. Not for what Zara had done. For who she was becoming. Inside the estate, power moved quietly. Jin Woo remained distant, watching, observing, never interfering unless necessary. But his presence was constant. Unspoken. Measured. He had kept his word. He hadn't given her comfort. He had given her direction. Later that evening, Zara stood alone again, this time overlooking the city lights stretching endlessly into the dark. The world hadn't changed. It was still brutal. Still unforgiving. But she had. She wasn't running anymore. Wasn't surviving from one day to the next. For the first time in her life, she had chosen where she stood. And what she would fight for. Her fingers tightened slightly around the staff, the weight grounding her. The past was still there. The scars hadn't faded. But they no longer controlled her. They guided her. Shaped her. Forged her into something stronger. Something unbreakable. Zara exhaled slowly, her gaze steady on the horizon. She wasn't lost anymore. She wasn't empty. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. And this time, she wouldn't stand still. Sometimes, it only takes one moment, one decision, to change everything. Zara could have walked away. Just like everyone else. But she didn't. And because of that, a life was saved, and another was transformed. If this story reminded you that strength isn't about size, but choice, then make sure you show your support. Like the video, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with someone who needs to remember. Even one person can make a difference.